The Galactic Council, a vast assembly of the most powerful alien races in the galaxy, had called for an important meeting. The room was filled with leaders from every corner of the universe, their species so different from one another that it was hard to believe they had ever shared the same space. Some were tall and thin with silvery skin, while others were squat, covered in scales, and had eyes that seemed to glow in the dark. The air was thick with tension. The council chamber, a massive space station floating far above the surface of a distant planet, had an eerie quiet. Everyone knew that the future of Earth, the newest member of the Galactic Council, would be decided here. For years, humanity had been striving to become part of the Council. It had taken centuries to build the trust of the other races and show that Earth's people were more than just a young, fragile species. Humanity had risen from the ashes of a broken world to become a force to be reckoned with in space exploration, technology, and diplomacy. Now, Earth's moment had finally arrived. Commander Elara was the chosen one to represent her planet in the meeting. She was a tall woman, strong and sharp, with a calm demeanor that hid the nervous excitement she felt inside. As she walked into the council room, the eyes of every alien in the room turned toward her. She was the only human among them, and the pressure was immense. She had trained for this moment her entire life, and yet, as she looked at the alien faces, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a lion's den. Elara had always been proud of her people, of their determination, intelligence, and resilience. But she knew that the Galactic Council wasn't interested in those qualities. What mattered here was power, control, and strategy. It was a game of politics played on a scale beyond anything Earth had ever known. And Earth's seat at this table was not a guarantee. It was a test, one that would either open the door to a new future or close it forever. As Elara took her seat, the chamber fell silent. The leader of the council, a tall being covered in shifting, colorful lights, spoke first. His voice echoed in the chamber, strong and commanding. "Commander Elara of Earth, your species has made significant progress in the galaxy. But there are concerns. Concerns that must be addressed before your planet can fully join our ranks." Elara nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment she had prepared for. She was ready to make her case for Earth's place among the stars. "Speak," the leader said, gesturing toward her. "Tell us why we should allow Earth into our fold." Elara rose from her seat, her voice steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. "Honorable members of the Galactic Council, Earth is a young species, yes, but we have proven ourselves time and time again. We have brought knowledge and creativity to the stars, developed technologies that can heal wounds the universe thought could never be healed, and have forged alliances with races of all kinds. We have shown that we are capable of cooperation, that we seek peace, not war. We only wish to join this council to continue our journey of peace and growth." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. She could feel the eyes of the aliens on her, watching, judging. Some nodded approvingly, but others, especially those sitting in the back rows, remained silent. The tension in the room was palpable. Every word she spoke would be weighed, every movement scrutinized. The leader spoke again, his voice colder this time. "And yet, your planet's history tells a different story. Wars, division, destruction. You have not yet proven you can be trusted with the power that comes with being a member of this council." Elara held his gaze, refusing to let her fear show. "Our past was shaped by mistakes, yes, but we have learned from them. We have grown. Earth is no longer the divided world it once was. We have come together as one, stronger than ever before. We are ready for this responsibility." The room was silent for a long moment. Elara could see the council members exchanging glances, their minds working through the possibilities. This was the part of the meeting that would decide everything. If they chose to accept Earth, it would be a turning point for humanity. But if they rejected her, if they decided humanity wasn't ready, it could mean the end of her mission, and the end of Earth's hopes of ever joining the Galactic Council. Suddenly, a figure in the back of the room rose. The alien was covered in dark armor, its face hidden beneath a helmet. It was a species that Elara had heard of, but never seen in person. The Xorth, an ancient race known for their ruthless ways and cunning. They were never fond of outsiders, especially humans. The Xorth spoke in a voice like gravel, deep and threatening. You speak of peace and growth, human, but can your people truly be trusted? We have seen what happens when a species like yours is allowed to thrive. You expand, you conquer, and you take what isn't yours. How can we trust you? The words cut through the room like a blade. Elara's heart skipped a beat. She could feel the eyes of the council members on her, waiting for her response. The weight of their doubt hung in the air. Elara's voice was calm, but strong. I cannot speak for the mistakes of Earth's past, but I can speak for the humans of today. We do not seek conquest. We seek partnership. We seek understanding. Our strength lies in our ability to learn and adapt. We have proven that we can change, and we will prove it again with your help. For a long moment there was nothing but silence. The Xorth remained standing, unmoving, their dark gaze fixed on her. The tension in the room was unbearable. Elara stood her ground, knowing that the next few moments would determine everything. The future of Earth, and the future of humanity's place in the stars, depended on what happened here. Then, unexpectedly, the council leader spoke again, his voice softer now, almost as if he had been considering her words. You may be right, Commander. Earth has shown promise, but it will not be an easy road. There will be those who oppose you, those who will not welcome your presence. Elara nodded, understanding the gravity of his words. I am ready for whatever comes. Earth is ready. The leader's expression softened just a little. Then we shall see, Commander. The decision will not be made today, but we will continue this discussion. For now, you may return to your planet. As Elara left the council chamber, her heart was filled with both hope and fear. She had made her case, but the future was still uncertain. The real challenge had just begun. The council chamber fell into an eerie silence. Commander Elara had just left the room after making a compelling case for humanity's place in the Galactic Council. But the Council's final decision remained unclear. As she walked down the long corridor leading to her ship, she felt a strange sense of unease settle over her. The weight of the conversation was heavy, and yet there was something off about the way the Council had reacted. The Xorth's words haunted her. Could they really trust humanity? Little did she know, that was just the beginning of a nightmare that would alter the course of humanity forever. Back on Earth, the news from the council meeting was broadcast to every corner of the planet. People gathered around their screens in anticipation, hoping to hear that humanity had been accepted into the Galactic Council. There was optimism in the air, but the tension was undeniable. For centuries, Earth had been striving to prove its worth, and this moment could determine its future. The initial reports were promising. Elara had spoken with grace and conviction, and the council had seemed to listen. But then, just as the excitement began to build, the broadcast cut out. The images on the screens flickered, and static filled the airwaves. For a few seconds, there was nothing but silence. Then, without warning, a loud voice echoed through the communication channels. This is not a negotiation, the voice boomed. Humanity's Envoy is no longer of interest to the Galactic Council. The broadcast cut to a feed of the council chamber, but what the people saw next was beyond comprehension. The scene was chaotic. Elara's body lay lifeless on the floor, a victim of an unthinkable betrayal. The council had killed her. The silence that followed was deafening. People across Earth stood frozen in shock, their minds unable to process what had just happened. The Council, a supposed governing body of the galaxy's most advanced species, had killed humanity's representative without warning. There was no explanation, no reason, just death. And the weight of that death carried far beyond the council chamber. It sent a message. Humanity was not welcome. Humanity was a threat. Elara's family, her friends, and her comrades in the military all watched in horror. No one could understand it. Why would the council, after hearing Elara's words, choose to kill her? The tension and uncertainty that had been building for years suddenly turned into a cold reality. The galaxy was not a place of peace and cooperation. It was a battlefield where trust was as fragile as glass, and death was a tool for maintaining power. In the moments that followed, the world's leaders scrambled to make sense of what had just occurred. They convened emergency meetings, trying to understand the ramifications of Ilara's death. Was it an isolated incident? Or was this a message to Earth? A warning that their place in the galaxy would be earned only through blood? Across the planet, people wept for their fallen Envoy. But for some, the grief quickly turned into something much darker: rage. Ilara had represented Earth's hopes, dreams, and ambitions. And now, in one brutal act, all of that had been shattered. Earth had been humiliated, betrayed, and rejected. The message was clear: humanity was not part of the galaxy's future. In military command centers, officers gathered to discuss their next steps. The question on everyone's mind was the same: what now? Would they simply let Ilara's death go unpunished? Would they accept the Council's decision without a fight? For some, the answer was already clear. General Marcus Rowe, a seasoned leader with years of experience in space combat, stood before a room of officers. His face was grim, his eyes cold with the fury of a man who had just witnessed an injustice that could not be ignored. "We're not weak," he said, his voice steady but filled with intensity. "We will not bow to this. We will make the Galactic Council understand that humanity will not be crushed. They have made a grave mistake, and we will make sure they regret it." His words were like fuel to a fire. In the weeks that followed, a wave of outrage swept across Earth. Protests erupted in every major city. People cried out for justice, for vengeance, for retribution. The streets were filled with chants demanding action, and as the anger grew, so did the determination of Earth's military forces. Yet, even in the midst of this rising fury, there was still confusion. Why had the Council done this? What had driven them to kill Ilara? Was it truly because they feared humanity's potential, or was there something darker at play? Ilara had not just been a representative. She had been a symbol, a beacon of hope for Earth's future in the galaxy. Her death wasn't just the loss of one life. It was the loss of everything she stood for. It was the death of trust, of diplomacy, of the hope that humanity could finally stand side by side with the great civilizations of the stars. But even in death, Ilara's legacy would live on. The human race had been pushed to the brink, but that would not break them. In the face of this unthinkable betrayal, humanity would rise. They would not be silenced. They would not be ignored. And as the galaxy watched, they would soon see what happened when Earth was pushed too far. The death of Commander Ilara was not the end. It was only the beginning. The news of Commander Ilara's death spread like wildfire, igniting a blaze of anger and defiance that swept through every corner of Earth. The death of their envoy, the brutal killing by the Galactic Council, was an insult that no one could ignore. It wasn't just a loss of life. It was a challenge to Earth's very existence, a declaration that humanity was not wanted, not respected, and not feared. And for the first time in centuries, humanity faced the most dangerous decision it had ever made: to surrender to the will of the galaxy or to fight back. The world's leaders, already on edge from the tension with the Council, found themselves on the defensive. What could they do? The Galactic Council was an immense power, and their reach spanned across the stars. Earth had no allies in the Council, no one to stand by their side. They were alone. And worse still, they had just lost the trust of the galaxy's most powerful races. The humans on Earth knew the odds were against them, but they also knew something that the galaxy didn't. Earth had been through worse and survived. Humanity had a history of turning its darkest moments into triumphs. As General Marcus Rowe stood before the world's military council, his mind raced. He had seen the faces of the people, the fire in their eyes, the rage that burned brighter than the stars. They were ready to fight. But it wasn't enough to have the will to fight. They needed a plan, they needed strategy, and they needed strength. "We have no choice," General Rowe said, his voice grim but resolute. We will take the fight to them. The Galactic Council thinks they can eliminate us with a single stroke, but they're wrong. This isn't the end of humanity. It's the beginning of something far more dangerous. We'll show them the true strength of Earth. The military forces of Earth began to mobilize. Ships, once used for exploration and diplomacy, were quickly repurposed for war. Weapons were upgraded, fleets were assembled, and every human colony that had been established across the galaxy received the same message: prepare for what's to come. But the anger was not just confined to the military. Earth's citizens were united in their demand for action. Protests turned into marches, and marches turned into calls for retribution. People who had never once thought about space travel or military strategy found themselves signing petitions, joining groups, and preparing for the inevitable war. In the cities, banners were hung with words like "Vengeance for Alara" and "We will not bow." The unity across Earth was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was a reflection of humanity's resilience, of their refusal to be broken. They had lost a leader, but they had gained something far greater: the conviction that they would not let their world be trampled upon. Yet, as the tides of war began to rise, not all were in favor of immediate retaliation. Earth's diplomats, still reeling from the death of Alara, argued that it would be foolish to attack without understanding the true motivations behind the Galactic Council's actions. Were they acting out of fear? Were they testing humanity? The debates raged for days. Some leaders wanted diplomacy to be given one final chance, while others felt that there could be no peace until Earth had asserted its power. Meanwhile, deep in the heart of the Galactic Council's operations, a different kind of plan was unfolding. The assassination of Alara had not been the work of the entire council. It was the action of the faction within it. The Xorth, the same race that had questioned humanity's trustworthiness, had been the driving force behind the decision. Their reasoning was simple. Humanity was too dangerous. Their potential was far too great, and if allowed to continue growing, they would one day challenge the established power of the Council itself. The Xorth were not the only ones who felt threatened by humanity. There were whispers of other factions, hidden groups of alien races that saw humanity's rise as an existential threat. But what no one had anticipated was how quickly the humans would respond. The Xorth had miscalculated. They thought humanity would cower, that Earth would accept the Council's judgment and fall into line. They were wrong. Earth wasn't afraid of war. It had survived its own wars, fought against tyranny, and rebuilt itself from the ashes. The question now wasn't whether humanity could fight. It was whether they could fight smart. General Rowe knew that a direct assault on the Galactic Council would be a disaster. They had no idea where to strike, and they were outnumbered by forces that had decades, if not centuries, of advanced technology. They needed a strategy, a way to undermine the Council's power without exposing Earth to total annihilation. That's when Earth's scientists, working tirelessly behind the scenes, made a breakthrough. They had developed a new kind of weapon, one that could disable the Council's advanced technology and cripple their communication networks. This was humanity's secret weapon, not brute force, but the ability to disrupt, to strike where it would hurt most, the heart of the Council's infrastructure. The scientists had figured out how to create a pulse that could target and disable even the most advanced alien ships and stations. It was risky. It was dangerous, but it was the only chance humanity had. As Earth's military prepared for war, a small team of elite soldiers and scientists was selected for a covert mission. They would infiltrate the heart of the Galactic Council's communication network and deploy the new weapon. If they succeeded, they could cripple the Council's ability to coordinate their forces and turn the tide of the war in Earth's favor. The tension was unbearable. Earth had made its choice. War was coming, and the galaxy would soon feel the full force of humanity's fury. The time for negotiation was over. The time for action had arrived. In every corner of the world, people held their breath. Would humanity's plan succeed, or would they be wiped out by the overwhelming power of the Galactic Council? The next few days would determine the future of not just Earth, but of every human alive. The stage was set. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The stars above Earth shimmered, untouched by the chaos below. But for humanity, the quiet expanse of space no longer felt like a peaceful frontier. It felt like a battlefield, one where Earth's future would be decided. The time for diplomacy had passed. The Galactic Council had drawn the first blood, and now it was humanity's turn to strike back. General Marcus Rose stood at the front of a vast military command center, watching the final preparations unfold. On the screens before him, fleets of ships were readied. Hundreds of vessels, once used for peaceful exploration and trade, now carried humanity's hopes for survival and vengeance. The weight of the decision hung heavy on Rose's shoulders. He had always been a soldier, but this was a war unlike any other. Earth had never faced such a powerful enemy, nor had they been pushed so far. "It's time," Rose muttered under his breath, his eyes scanning the faces of his officers. "We move out now. No second chances. We fight until the end." On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Council was blissfully unaware of the storm brewing on the horizon. The Xorth, who had orchestrated Alara's death, were confident in their victory. They believed humanity would crumble beneath the weight of their power. They had underestimated the resolve of Earth, though. They had underestimated the fire in the hearts of people who had never backed down from a challenge, no matter the odds. Earth's military had been mobilized for weeks, but it wasn't just the military that had been preparing for battle. The scientists, engineers, and technicians worked tirelessly in secret, perfecting the new weapon that could cripple the Galactic Council's technology. This weapon, a disruptive electromagnetic pulse, EMP, could send shockwaves through the most advanced alien systems, rendering them useless. If deployed correctly, it could take down entire fleets and disable communication between the Council's vast network of worlds. The team tasked with this dangerous mission was made up of Earth's most skilled soldiers and brilliant scientists. Their goal was to infiltrate the heart of the Galactic Council's communications hub, a vast and heavily guarded space station known as the Nexus. It was there that the Council's power was focused, a nerve center for their entire fleet. If the team could disable the Nexus, they would be able to delay the Council's response to Earth's war effort, buying humanity valuable time to establish a foothold in the conflict. The journey to the Nexus was fraught with peril. Earth's forces had to navigate through hostile space, where every move could be watched by the ever-vigilant Galactic patrols. The risks were high, but so were the stakes. Humanity had no choice but to go on the offensive. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, their ships streaking through the cosmos, leaving behind the Earth they had vowed to protect. Every ship carried a sense of urgency. Every soldier aboard knew they might never return. But the courage in their hearts outweighed the fear. Their mission was clear: strike fast, strike hard, and send a message to the Galactic Council that humanity would not be cowed. Meanwhile, General Rose's mind raced. He knew that the success of the operation hinged not only on the EMP, but also on their ability to outmaneuver the Council's superior forces. Earth's military was small in comparison, and they had no intention of facing the full might of the Galactic Council head-on. They needed to be smart. The attack on the Nexus would be a diversion, a chance for Earth's cover team to slip through and plant the EMP, but it had to happen fast, and it had to be done with precision. The fleet arrived at the outer rim of the Council's territory, where the Nexus station orbited a barren moon. The station was an imposing structure, a fortress in space, bristling with defensive weapons and protected by layers of security. It was considered impenetrable, and its inhabitants had never feared any invasion, until now. As the Earth fleet approached, they were met by the first wave of Council forces. Ships unlike any Earth had ever seen filled the void, their sleek alien designs cutting through the stars like knives. Their weapons crackled with energy, ready to tear through anything that stood in their way. But Earth's ships, though less advanced, were built for resilience, for defiance. The first skirmishes began with a ferocity that startled both sides. Earth's fighters, though outnumbered, were determined and fast. They darted through the Council's defenses, outmaneuvering enemy ships and launching pinpoint attacks on weak points. General Rowe's plan was working. Earth's forces were creating chaos, drawing the Council's attention away from the real target. On the ground of the Nexus station, the cover team prepared for the final phase of their mission. A mix of soldiers, engineers, and scientists suited up in specialized armor designed for stealth and speed. Their task was to infiltrate the Nexus, bypass its security systems, and plant the EMP device at the core of the station's communication hub. The station was a fortress, but it had one critical weakness. It relied heavily on its communication links to the rest of the galaxy. If Earth's team could sever that connection, the Council's entire network would be crippled. The team's shuttle docked with the Nexus in the dead of night, a small blip in the vastness of space. The station's artificial gravity was weak, and the air inside was sterile and cold. The mission's commander, Captain Elena Holt, issued the final orders. "We move quickly, and we stay silent. We're not here to fight. We're here to win." The group made their way through the dark hallways, each step deliberate and calculated. They encountered no resistance at first, but they knew the longer they moved undetected, the greater their chances of success. They reached the central core, a vast chamber filled with servers and glowing data streams. Here, they planted the EMP, setting it to activate at the right moment. Just as they were about to make their exit, alarms blared across the Nexus. The Council had detected the intrusion. The team had been discovered. The countdown had begun, but they were too close to fail now. As the first wave of Council forces charged toward them, Captain Holt gave the order: "Deploy the EMP now." The device activated with a hum, sending out a powerful wave that rippled through the station, disabling every system in its path. The lights flickered and then went out. The Nexus station went silent. The heart of the Galactic Council's communication network had been crippled. But the battle was far from over. Earth's fleet had made its first move, and now the war for survival had truly begun. The galaxy would soon learn that underestimating humanity was a mistake they would regret forever. The darkness inside the Nexus station was all-consuming. The once vibrant lights, which had illuminated the corridors and powered the systems of the Galactic Council, now flickered and died. The EMP had worked. Every signal, every communication, every weapon system was now useless. The galaxy's most powerful network had been brought to its knees by a single well-executed strike. Captain Elena Holt stood in the heart of the now silent Nexus, the echo of alarms still ringing in her ears. Her team had done their job, but the chaos was just beginning. They had only a few minutes to escape before the Council's forces flooded the station to reclaim control. "Move," Holt barked, her voice steady, despite the chaos around them. The team rushed to the extraction point, each of them hyper-aware of the risk they were taking. They could hear the distant sounds of alien footfalls, Council soldiers closing in. They had done what they came to do. But now they had to get out, or the entire mission would be for nothing. Outside, the battle between Earth's forces and the Galactic Council raged. General Rowe's strategy had been a gamble: distract the enemy long enough for the cover team to complete their mission. As the EMP rippled through the Nexus, Rowe's ships continued to fight off the superior alien forces, creating a wall of defense that allowed Holt and her team to escape undetected for a while longer. The Earth fleet had taken the Council by surprise. The Council's warships, though more technologically advanced, were not prepared for the ferocity and unpredictability of humanity's tactics. Earth's ships were not designed for overwhelming power, but they were fast, agile, and more resilient than anything the Council had expected. Earth's soldiers, too, were fighting with a sense of purpose, their families, their planet, and their very survival on the line. The desperation was palpable, and it fueled their every move. General Rowe watched from his command center as his fleet engaged the Council's forces. His hands were tight on the controls, the decision of a lifetime weighing on him. He knew that Earth's fleet was outnumbered, and their ships were no match for the Council's advanced weaponry. But the attack on the Nexus was already turning the tide. For the first time, the Galactic Council's superiority was being questioned. Earth was no longer an afterthought. It was a threat. "Sir, the Nexus is down," one of the officers reported. The news spread like wildfire through the fleet. Earth's first major victory had been achieved. The Council was crippled, and the momentum was shifting. But the Galactic Council wasn't going to go down quietly. Within moments of the EMP's activation, the Xorth, who had been the masterminds behind the plan to eliminate humanity, ordered a retaliatory strike. They began deploying reinforcements, heavier ships, more advanced technology, and the full fury of their fleet. It was a desperate response to an unexpected attack, and it set the stage for the most brutal phase of the conflict. On the ground, Captain Holt and her team reached their extraction point, where a small shuttle waited to carry them back to Earth's fleet. But the escape wasn't going to be easy. The Nexus station's defenses were coming back online faster than expected, and they could already see the shadows of enemy soldiers closing in on them. "Get to the shuttle," Holt yelled. "We don't have much time." As they sprinted toward their escape, explosions rocked the station's outer walls. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and the sounds of battle were all around them. The team piled into the shuttle, and as the hatch sealed, Holt gave a final glance back at the Nexus. "I'm sorry, Alara," she whispered to herself. The mission had been for her, and for all the people the Galactic Council had wronged. Now they had to survive long enough to ensure that sacrifice wasn't in vain. With the shuttle doors closed, the small team lifted off from the Nexus, just as the first wave of Council reinforcements descended upon the station. But Holt's team had done it. They had completed their mission. The communication network of the Galactic Council had been disabled, throwing their entire fleet into disarray. Earth's fleet was still fighting hard, but now, with the communications blackout, the Galactic Council's forces were struggling to coordinate. The EMP had bought Earth the precious time they needed to regroup and reorganize. As Earth's fleet pulled back into the safety of their own defense lines, General Rao received the news. The Nexus was down. The EMP had worked. Humanity had struck a blow that the Council would not easily recover from. The battle was far from over, but for the first time the tides of war were in Earth's favor. The Council had underestimated humanity's resolve. They had thought Earth weak, fragmented, and easily controllable. But the reality was far different. Earth was united, stronger than ever, and ready to stand its ground. The war was now truly underway. The Galactic Council had no idea what they had unleashed. They thought they had destroyed humanity's resolve, but in reality, they had ignited a fire that would burn through the stars. Earth had shown the galaxy that it would never surrender. And now, as the battle raged on, the Council would learn that humanity was a force they could no longer ignore. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Earth would fight until the end, no matter the cost. The silence of space was deceptive. Beneath the calm exterior of the galaxy, an enormous storm was brewing. The Galactic Council had lost control of the Nexus, and their communications network had been shattered. For the first time, Earth had gained the upper hand in the war. But General Marcus Roan knew better than to believe the war was over. The Council's wrath would be swift, and the true fight was only just beginning. Inside the command center aboard Earth's flagship, the Velar, Ro stood with a map of the galaxy displayed before him. The map was now alive with movement, ships, coordinates, and the paths of Earth's fleet as they regrouped after the strike on the Nexus. Every decision he made now had the weight of the entire planet on it. Humanity was fighting for survival, and they couldn't afford any missteps. "Sir, reports are coming in from the front lines," an officer said, breaking Ro's concentration. "The Council is mobilizing everything they have. Reinforcements are arriving from all corners of their empire. It's only a matter of time before they launch a full-scale counterattack." Ro clenched his fists. The Council wasn't going to let this attack go unanswered. The Xorth had been humiliated. Their pride, their power, their entire empire had been shaken. Now they were coming for revenge. Earth had been fortunate to disable the Nexus, But the Council's technology was still far superior to anything Earth had. The next battle would test humanity's limits. But Ro wasn't ready to give up. Humanity had been underestimated by the Council before. This time, they would be ready. "We need to strike fast," Ro said. "We don't have the luxury of waiting for them to regroup. If we let them re-establish communication, they'll come after us with everything they've got. We'll launch a preemptive strike before they can fully mobilize. We'll hit them where it hurts, at their supply lines." The room fell silent as his officers absorbed his words. Ro's plan was risky. Earth's fleet wasn't large enough to take on the full might of the Galactic Council. But a quick strike against their supply depots, their military infrastructure, could delay their counterattack and buy Earth time to prepare. "Get the fleet ready," Ro ordered. "We move in 2 hours." At the same time, Captain Elena Holt's shuttle had finally made it back to the flagship. Her team was exhausted but triumphant. The EMP had crippled the Nexus, but they all knew that the real fight was just beginning. As the shuttle landed, Holt stepped off, her face set in determination. She had lost many good people in the operation, and their sacrifice would not be in vain. "Captain, good to see you back," Ro greeted her. "I'm sending the fleet out on a counteroffensive. We're hitting their supply lines, everything they've built to sustain this war. We're going to take the fight to them before they have time to react." Holt nodded. "Understood, sir. We'll be ready." As the fleet prepared for the next battle, Earth's soldiers knew that the odds were still stacked against them. The Council's forces were vast and well-equipped, but humanity's spirit was unwavering. Earth had already made its mark in this war, and they would continue to fight with everything they had. The preemptive strike came swiftly. Earth's fleet jumped into hyperspace, emerging on the edge of the Council's territory. Their target, a series of massive supply depots located on a remote moon, heavily guarded but critical to the Council's war effort. These supply lines were the lifeblood of the Council's military might, and without them, their fleets would be crippled. If Earth could strike fast and hard, they could buy enough time to regroup and prepare for the Council's next move. The assault was launched without hesitation. Earth's ships attacked with precision, moving in formations that had been practiced to perfection. They took the Council by surprise, striking hard and fast. In a series of coordinated attacks, they tore through the Council's defenses, destroying key supply depots, weapons caches, and fuel stations. The Council's forces, still disoriented from the loss of the Nexus, were caught off guard. The damage was extensive. In a matter of hours, Earth had crippled a significant portion of the Council's supply lines. Ships that had been in the process of launching reinforcements were forced to turn back. The fleet that had been so confident in its superiority now found itself struggling to maintain control of its own territory. On the ground, Holt's team had a new objective. With the supply depots destroyed, the Council would be forced to retreat to their nearest strongholds for resupply. Holt's team, now part of an elite force tasked with securing strategic ground, moved quickly to disable the Council's secondary communication outposts. The goal was simple: keep the Council isolated for as long as possible, preventing them from calling for reinforcements. Holt's team infiltrated the next outpost, a heavily fortified installation deep in the heart of the Council's territory. They worked with deadly efficiency, disabling security systems, neutralizing guards, and planting explosive charges on the core systems. The plan was to cripple this outpost just as they had done with the Nexus. If they could disable these secondary hubs, the Council would be blind, unable to coordinate with their other forces. Meanwhile, General Rao received the reports from the front lines. The strike had been successful. The Council was reeling, their supply chains disrupted, their communication systems in disarray. It was a significant victory, but Ro knew it wasn't enough. The Council would retaliate. He could already feel the tide of battle shifting. "We've bought ourselves some time," Ro said to his officers, "but now we need to prepare for their counterattack. We can't afford to be complacent." As Earth's fleet regrouped, Ro felt a deep sense of resolve settle over him. They had struck the first major blow, but the war was far from over. The Council would be back, stronger and more determined. The next battle would be even more critical. In the distance, the stars continued to burn. For Earth, the war had just begun, but they had proven something crucial to the galaxy. Humanity would not bow down. The fire that had been sparked would continue to burn, and the Council would learn that humanity was a force to be reckoned with. The battle for survival was just beginning, and Earth wasn't going to give up without a fight. The tension in the galaxy was palpable. The Galactic Council, its once unshakable confidence shattered by Earth's relentless strikes, was regrouping. The surprise attacks on their supply lines and communication hubs had left them vulnerable, but now they were retaliating with all their might. A vast fleet had been assembled, larger, stronger, and more determined than ever before. General Marcus Rose stood before the massive holographic map of the galaxy, his eyes scanning the enemy's movements. The Council had not been idle. Their counteroffensive was coming, and it would be brutal. Ro knew the next few days would decide humanity's fate. "We can't run. We can't hide," Ro muttered to himself. "This is it. This is the last chance." With Earth's fleet still scarred from the previous battles, the pressure was enormous. Humanity was outnumbered, outgunned, and still reeling from their losses. But one thing the Council had failed to understand was the resolve of humanity's spirit. Earth had no choice but to stand and fight. No more retreats, no more compromises. This was their final stand. "We need to use everything we've learned," Rose said, turning to his officers. "We've crippled their supply lines. We've hit them where it hurts. Now we hit them harder. It's time to finish this." As the fleet prepared for the final confrontation, Captain Elena Holt's team was deep behind enemy lines. They had learned the Council's tactics, their weaknesses, and now they would exploit them. Holt's mission was to infiltrate one of the Council's largest warships, a massive dreadnought, and sabotage its engines. The ship was one of the most formidable in the Council's fleet, and if it could be disabled, it would send a powerful message to the enemy. Humanity was not only a threat, it was a force capable of breaking the Council's might. Holt and her team slipped aboard the dreadnought under the cover of darkness. The ship was a labyrinth of corridors, each more dangerous than the last. The crew was on high alert, but Holt's team was prepared. They moved with deadly precision, neutralizing guards, setting charges, and planting explosives at critical points within the ship's core. "This is it," Holt whispered as she glanced at her team. "Once we hit the engine core, this ship goes down. We'll make sure of it." The minutes felt like hours as they navigated the ship, each step bringing them closer to their target. They could hear the hum of the ship's power systems, the sounds of a massive fleet preparing for battle. The Council's forces were ready for the final push, but they didn't know that Earth's forces were just as ready to bring everything they had. As Holt reached the engine room, she gave the signal to plant the final charge. The dreadnought's enormous engine was a marvel of engineering, but it wasn't invincible. A well-placed explosion would render it useless, and it would send shockwaves through the Council's fleet. With the charge set, Holt and her team made their escape, barely managing to evade detection as the ship's alarms began to blare. The countdown had begun. The dreadnought would soon be nothing more than debris in space. Back in space, Earth's fleet was already engaging the Council's forces. The massive warships collided in a spectacular display of firepower. Energy blasts, missile strikes, and the rumble of combat reverberated through the void. General Rowe's orders had been clear: strike hard, strike fast. Earth's fleet had no time to waste.